Let's say you know how to play your basic open chords, but do you know what makes up those chords? So there's actually little intervals, little distances inside of those chords that are creating the sounds that we hear. We go from dyad, triad, all the way to tetrad, and even above for some chord types. But for now, I'm just going to be focusing on how I can make learning triads as simple as possible for you. So the first thing we're going to want to be able to know is our major scale pattern and our minor scale pattern. You can play it in a variety of different ways. I'll take you to the computer to show you just a few.
What I'm trying to do is show you guys the scale shapes in a variety of different ways so that we can learn how to interpret our arpeggios and spelling chord tones in a way that's going to make sense for each and every one of us. And I've learned this over the course of, years. So first, I want to point out that green is going to be color coded for major and red is going to be color coded for minor. I am sorry if you are colorblind. I am not. So over here we have our major scale. And this is our major scale in our 3-note per string shape. And the reason why we call it 3-note per string is because there's 3 notes per strings, and it's also arranged in a major scale formula. But you might be like looking at this and say, well, Rylan, you idiot. I know that there is 7 notes within a scale, 8 including the octave. So why is this so much bigger than perhaps this on a single string? So let's go back, just clarify. If I count up, right, it's just going to be repeating. If this is my first note and this is my second note, we can continue this pattern. This would be my third note. This would be my fourth note. This would be my fifth note. This would be my sixth note. This would be my seventh note. And this would be my eighth note, which is also my 1. So what's after 1? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So essentially we're taking that and continuing it up the scale. So it's just the same thing. It's continuing in octaves. So when we're doing this, we have it arranged in that formula so that we can continue it so that it makes sense with our fingers. So now if we look at it on a single string, we still have the same notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, if we're doing this in C major, which I did for most of this video. Stuck to the key of C major and a little bit of C minor for this instance. And you'll notice that we have a root, a second note, a third note, a fourth note, a fifth note, a sixth note, and a seventh note, and then an eighth note back to our octave. So essentially, it's still the same thing. And if you know the 12th fret at the octave, it would just continue past that. Think of it just like that. So in case you just don't believe me, because I've been there before, this is our C major scale on a single string. And this is our C major scale all the way across our 3-note per string patterns. This is our octave, right? At 10, at 8, this is our root note, right? At 3, this is our, C note. And at 15, this is also our octave, just adding 12, right? To get to our next octave. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we can take these patterns, right? And try and spell chord tones. So first I want to stick with probably the major. So I'll be sticking with this, but here's a quick refresh of the minor. So you can count along with me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have our eighth note over here. So this is our octave, and then 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's just going to continue all the way like that, just like our other shapes. So over here in our minor scale on a single string, what we're going to try to start doing is taking these patterns, right, all of these scale shapes, and removing them so that we can only focus on the chord tones. And there's a few things I want to point out here. We are looking at everything right now from the perspective of this root note. The distance from here to here is considered a major third. And I have the M capitalized to represent major, and then the M down here in lowercase to represent minor. So we're going up a major third, and then if we go back to our root, we're going up a perfect fifth from our root, okay? And so if we go down here to our minor, we're going up to a minor third, and if we go back, to our root, we're going up a perfect fifth. Interesting. Don't you find it curious that our major chord, this is going to be our whole major chord all the way up here because it's color coded to green. And these notes, we're taking them, if we take an E major chord, right? Any chord, we're just essentially taking the notes of the chord, right? Any like open chord position, and we're changing them so that we're playing the notes that we need so that we can play them in a different position so we can learn them and try and understand what's happening. So you'll notice that both the fifths add up to the same thing, but these guys don't. This is where we start to get our tonality, right? Like if I have a major, C major, versus C minor, there's going to be a little bit of a difference. And that's going to be in the third. And you can think of the fifth as a grounding quality that they both share. So now that I've established that, right, the distance from here is a major third, the distance from here to here is a perfect fifth, right? And this from here to here is a minor third, and from this to this is a perfect fourth. Some of you guys might have already picked up on this, but I'll talk about it. Over here, right, once I switch the tab, you'll see that instead you can think of it in a different way. So let's first compare it. Let's first look at this. From our root to our major third to what was our perfect fifth, you'll notice that from our major third to our minor third, if I count up 1, 2, 3, that's a distance of 3, okay? But now if I go down here, 1, 2, 3, our minor third is still a distance of 3. So now we're taking that minor third and we're adding it up here because we've compared it to our original major third. And from our minor third in our minor chord, if we want to go up to our fifth, which is still the same note, we can notice this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I see a 1, 2, 3, 4 of a distance. Right now, we don't have to focus on qualities. In fact, I probably should have made this without the qualities, without the thirds, but I believe it is very good to know. But as long as you can count, through the scale and you have your reference scale over here, knowing that it's minor or major, you should be able to tell me that the third note of my major scale is up here and the third note of my minor scale is down here, right? So we're just taking that and rearranging it. So if you get what I'm saying, we're adding our root to our major third, and then we're adding it to and then we're taking our major third and adding a minor third on top, right, to get our major chord of C and E and then G. Right? If we do it with the minor, we have a root, minor third to a major third. So just a quick review. Everything we've looked at includes this version of looking at the chords and this version of looking at the chords. So you can look at it like this. As if I'm referring to my scale, I count up my major scale. Let's say it's my major scale. No, let's go minor. Let's say it's my minor scale. I will count up from my root note to 3. So in the scale, so 1. That's 1, 2, 3. Okay, I have this note. Let's say this is E flat because I know factually it is. If we put this on the fretboard, this would be C, and then this would be E flat. And then let's go back to our root and count up 5 in our scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So now we have that, and we've managed to spell it like that, following this sort of formula from back to our root. Then if we look at it like this, as if we're going from major to minor on our scale shape, but referring it to the other way, as I mentioned before, where we take this and stack them on top of each other. If we go back over here, let's go back to the major instead. If we go back to the major, right, we can compare the distance. So a distance of 3 from our major third, right? 1, 2, 3. It would actually be a minor third, right? Derived from minor scale, right? You see that distance of 3, go back to here. Distance of 3 to get to our perfect fifth. And you'll notice a little bit of a pattern, right? That's forming. The perfect fifths are always going to be there. So
The one I'm going to be using for the first little bit is to showcase our triads. Let's say we're going to be sticking to the key of C major, which is also A minor. I will be showing you how to play a C major chord on a single string. I like to think of it in a couple of different ways. So if I'm going to play a C major chord, the first thing I'm going to want to do is find my C note, which happens to be here. And so, as I referenced earlier, we would have to play a distance of a major third. So major third, I would have to refer to my major scale, and then from there count up 3 notes within my scale. So 1, 2, 3. And we're at a major third. So now what we're going to want to do after that is go to our new root, which is going to be the E. So now what I want to do is play my minor scale. But again, only the first 3 notes. So 1, 2, 3. So I have a G note and an E note and a C note. And that's how you could play a major triad on a single string. So what we're trying to do is showcase how the major triads stack on top of each other. So you can also think of it in a different way as well. So if I have my major scale, just like that, right? So da, that would be my C major scale. You can think of it instead of, okay, I'm going to play the third note in my scale along with my first. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then you can say a perfect fifth distance. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so what I'm really trying to do and emphasize is how we're playing a major third and a minor third, right? But we have different ways of looking at it. You can think of it tonally as if you're looking at in the individual notes, right, with a major third on top of a minor third, or you can instead look at it from the relation of our tonic note from C to E to G, which would be a distance of a third and then a fifth. So we don't really want to talk about the qualities right now, but that's something we'll get into. So for the first basic level, I recommend going through the C major scale, excluding the diminished. I'll talk about that some other time. So if you're playing the C major scale, make sure you're trying to play the C major chord tones, right? You can think of it as, okay, I'm playing my first 3 notes of my major scale, and then my next 3 notes of my minor scale when I'm over here. Right? And that's how you can make a da 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 little triad from there. And then if you wanted to do a minor scale, here's where it gets different. So fortunately for us in this instance, our 2 chord in C major is minor. So that would be D. We have a D, and then we're going to add a minor third to it. So taking our minor scale, 1, 2, 3, count up 3 from there. This is going to be our minor scale all the way up to here. We have D, F. Let's go over to here. Then we're going to do a major scale, counting up to 3. 1, 2, 3. And that is an example of playing a minor triad within on a single string. So you could do this down here if you wanted to, up here, wherever you want to play your triads. This gets useful for tapping, and I just like to think that it's helpful to see it this way as well, and then a couple other ways as well, because we can play we can play parallel against a string, but we can also play down and across, up and across. And once you start looking at it like that, combining all these different methods, that's how you're going to start to be able to get the best mileage out of this. So, and let's go for another example, right? I know off the top of my heart that, off the top of my head, the C minor would be a C, and then an E flat, and then a G. So if I wanted to, I'll showcase what it sounds like to play a minor and then a major of the same chord. So that was minor, and then we're going to go major. And what's really fascinating too is that the minor chord and the major chord all have perfect fifths in them, even though they might not have a major third or minor third as their third defining note in the little triad that we have so far. It's really interesting to see it that way, because then once we realize our fifth, right, our power chord, that's when we can realize that, hey, this is what we would call a dyad, right? So power chord, one note and a second note, gives us that sort of bass. It gives us that like filler that you really need when you're playing these chords. Because if you just went, it would sound happy as opposed to sounding sad. But playing the fifth, gives the chord the extra space and foundation that it needs to build off of. And so I'll show you another couple ways, right? If you know your G major chord and your G minor chord, which nobody really plays, like that, nobody really plays it like that. What we can start to do is now, as opposed to playing it parallel on a single string, now what we're going to do is try and make sure that we are playing this on perhaps a little grouping within our scale. So I'm going to show you two ways. We're going to start to do it across the string, and we're going to start trying and seeing if we can do it maybe. No, I'll just stick with this method for now. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to start taking this, because we've learned our arpeggios. We've learned them across on a single string, and that's useful. But a lot of times you might not be able to find a use for that, and so that's why we're going to try to look at them instead with our triads using this method. So you can, of course, play them in different ways, right? You see, those are all different ways to play chords, right? And since we're taking those chords, we're going to be trying to take those chords, right, but play them in different ways. And there's so many different ways I don't want to overwhelm you, so I'm only just going to show you a few, and I think these ones are the best ones. So the first one is going to be playing it sort of with like our E major kind of shape. So I would prefer to do it like this, but you could also do it another way. So again, we're going to take our C major, but now we can take that G note and put it down here on the 10th of the A string. Doesn't sound a little bit different? Yes, but now we're trying to start looking at it in a couple of different ways, knowing what notes are close to each other, right? So I know that this is the fifth. There's a fifth over here, right? And it gets very interesting too when we start doing it like that. And this is the distance of our major scale. So you could also count up your major scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take those chord tones, the 1s, 3, and 5. And that's how you can start building off of your triads. And so I would say from here, another way is now we want to look at the minor chords. So if we want to play a C minor, we have to do a distance of a minor third. So now instead of playing E major, I played an E flat to make it minor. And we still went to the fifth. So you can sort of see how we're taking these shapes and we're moving the notes to different spots. And then from here, what I would like to do is show another way. So now we're going to take that, but we're going to take our G major sort of position, right? And now we're going to sort of do it with our triad going to be down here. So I like to play it like this also. So if I have C, down on the A, back 1 fret, is a major third. Major third distance, right? So that's the same note. And then you can slide up, hammer on from there. So this would be, right, since we're playing our root, major third distance, we're going to take our minor scale, count up from 3, 1, 2, 3. And now we have a cool major chord that you can do. And if you wanted to, you can start getting used to this, and then you're going to flat that third note to make it a minor C major, right? A minor C major chord with the flat third, and then do the same thing. But now, since we're stacking these triads of major third on top of minor third, it's still going to be a perfect fifth, but now we're changing it. So we're going to take our new root on our minor third, play our major scale, count up to 3, and now we have a new note. So So I hope a lot of you guys can understand what I'm trying to pick up. So let's recap just a little bit. We're playing them on a single string, right? And I'm trying to stick to sort of the key of C major a little bit, right? And if on C major, all these distances, they all work on the piano, right? And these black notes are the accidentals, and these accidentals are the sharps and flats, and that's what happens when we change a few of the chord qualities. And so if we were trying to build off of this, right? If that was level one, just knowing how to level one sort of zero, level 1 0, right? One would be learning the stuff on the computer. Level one would be applying it, and then level two would be trying to say, okay, let's apply it a little bit further. So now we're going to take that knowledge with our major seventh chords.
So when we get to a certain point, we can start to add tetrads. And when we have a tetrad, that refers to a 7 to a 4-note chord with a 7th tonality. So if we refer back to this shape, you'll notice that it's just taking the some of the other chords, right, other intervals, and removing them. But now we have an M7 and an M7 again, right? So major seventh and then a minor seventh. But when we compare it from our perfect fifth, if I count up 1, 2, 3, that just so happens to be a minor third. If I go back to my major, right? Perfect fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4. That just so happens to be a major third. And now you can start to see the pattern forming. Root, major third, major third. And then if we wanted to continue it, it would be a minor third on top of the major third. Then if we go down here, root, minor third, major third, minor third. And if we wanted to continue, it would be also a minor third. But chances are you're probably not going to want to do that. But in some instances, it is required. So, reviewing back to our tetrads, what I said was we could look at it like this, as if we're looking at it through a single scale lens on our root note, comparing the distance from our third note and our fifth note, right, from the scale. We're just removing all these other things that we don't really need, like the 2, the 4, the 6, right? So we're just getting rid of that. And so when I'm saying third, fifth, and seventh, we're just talking about the distance from our root note. But within the root note, there's these little sandwiches, right? These little changes, these intervals, right, within each of these notes, right? To build our chord, we need those little intervals and we need those little parts to align and connect with each other. So that's how we talk about it, right? We're stacking our triads and thirds into tetrads, and then whatever would be after a tetrad. I'm not sure the tonality. I'm not sure the word. I think quintuplet. So yeah, that's primarily it. And let's compare the two. I hope you guys see what I mean.
Or major seventh chords. And so once you start tapping your seventh chords, you should be an expert at sort of being able to see the string, see the scale along the strings, and being able to play them in a way that you can visualize sort of chord tones, right? So again, sticking to C major, we would have, if we wanted to play a major seventh, we would have a major 7, minor 7, and then a major 7 again. So we have with C, E, G, and then B. I don't know if I can tap that. And so that's why there's a lot of different other ways to show it, because we want to be able to be at the point where we can do this with wherever we want to be doing it, right? Because to guitar, there's a lot of different techniques, and I think that this is a good way to learn it from another technique perspective, right? So I already established that I know I can look at my scale and say, okay, I know that from this perspective, it's going to be a major third, perfect fifth, and then a major seventh. Or instead, I can think of it as a major third, minor third, and then a major third. So I've already established that. So I want to find C, E. So I want to find C, C. Think of that triad, E, G. And so what's interesting is that the distance from the perfect fifth is a major third. So we're going to take that major third, take our major scale shape, count up 1, 2, 3, takes us to B, but I don't like that B position, so I can play it over here. So really what we're trying to do is, you'll notice that we have this, sort of the same fingering position. And we've got that C major arpeggio down, the major 7th. And so when we start doing this, let's say we want to change it into a minor. So what we would do is take our minor, we're at our 5th. So we have our root, minor 3rd, major 3rd, and then a minor 3rd. Major, minor, and so I'd say that's really how you can build off of that. So from here, my biggest takeaway that I'm trying to take away from this for you guys is that so you can be able to visualize your whole tone, semitone, tone, semitone, right, scales on a single string, and learn how you can take that and apply the logic that we've learned today with building our major scale or minor scale, taking the intervals and finding the notes from there. You could also, instead of doing it that way, you could think, okay, within the single scale, but I think that way is a little bit more redundant because then you have to memorize it, but you'll start noticing little patterns like, hey, the 7th, major 7th is just back here. The minor 7th is back here, right? You'll start picking up on these little patterns that you can use for when you're trying to find chords and triads and tetrads so that you're trying to alleviate some of that stress, right? And you're building it in such a way that it makes sense for you because guitar is going to be different for everybody. And this is just a few of the ways I like to be able to find those 7th chords and triads and build them off in my head. I think it's really helpful to do it that way. So let's recap. That way, with the across the string, trying to take it and arpeggiate it with our like basic chord shapes. That's also a good exercise. You can take your C major, E major, D major, whatever, all those chord shapes, and try and look at them and see if there's any inversions happening. And from there, building the 7ths. That will be really key to add up more of that spice. So I think that's really going to cover it for today's video, and I want you to practice this in C major for just a little bit. Try and find those chord tones, see if you can find them, where to find them, and this is really going to help solidify that knowledge, right? And work on this key for like a month. Work on this concept for like a month. And from here, you can build off into something else. Like maybe we can talk about diminished chords or augmented chords or being able to shred, right? Whatever you want to do. So we have to build from the basics and try and work our way up that ladder. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. And make sure to like, subscribe if you want, and if you want to, you can book a call with me. All right, I'll see you soon.